The deafening roar of the massive flatbed truck idled so loudly it rattled the weathered wooden beams of our front porch. By the steps, Henry's little blue plastic sandals lay abandoned. The sheer, intimidating size of the 12-wheel diesel machine had frightened him back into the house. But the real terror this morning wasn't the noise. It was the tiny glass soil testing vial trembling slightly in Alex's dirt-caked fingers. Inside the tube, the liquid was supposed to settle into a safe, balanced green. Instead, right before our eyes, it mutated into a toxic, burning yellow, highly acidic. Tu Na leaned against the bamboo gate, her exhausted face pale in the morning light. We had bet our entire farm's future and months of careful savings on this newly cleared lower field. Those 2,000 premium Darzan Pomelo saplings, currently strapped to the back of the idling truck, were meant to be our family's high-yield future. But staring at that jarring yellow liquid, the sickening reality settled heavily in our chests. The ground we had spent weeks preparing was completely dead. Hello friends, welcome back to the channel with Alex, Tu Na and Henry. Today, our family's biggest leap forward suddenly became our most terrifying mistake. With the saplings already beginning to bake in the rising heat and a frustrated driver refusing to wait, we had less than an hour to find a miracle or watch everything we had worked for turn to dust. The morning had started with such quiet, fragile hope. Just hours earlier, Tu Na was at the outdoor kitchen, stirring a simple pot of rice porridge, the familiar scent of wood smoke mingling with the cool dawn air. We had been waiting for this delivery for 6 months. But as the sun climbed higher, casting harsh light over the scraped brown earth of the lower field, that peaceful rhythm was violently shattered. The contrast was painful to look at. On the back of the truck, the pomelo saplings were a vibrant, lush green, teeming with life. Below them lay 2 acres of barren, dusty soil. The mistake was entirely human, born from a desperate desire to expand quickly. When Alex hired a machine to clear the old stubborn cassava roots last month, he had miscalculated. In an effort to make the ground perfectly flat, the blade had scraped too deeply, stripping away the precious thin layer of topsoil. It exposed a deeply acidic sublayer of earth that had slept beneath the surface for decades. Alex knelt in the dirt, running the dry, yellow-tinged dust through his calloused fingers. To plant a delicate, expensive pomelo root ball into this hostile earth would be like planting it in battery acid. It was an absolute death sentence for the trees. The crushing weight of his miscalculation hung heavily in the air, a silent apology to his wife standing just a few feet away. The sun was growing hotter, and the relentless ticking clock of nature began to echo in our ears. The truck driver paced aggressively around his massive vehicle, checking his watch and glaring at the empty field. The loud, sharp hiss of the truck's air brakes periodically broke the silence, a constant reminder that this heavy machinery did not belong in our quiet yard, and the driver had no intention of staying long. Tu Na didn't panic outwardly, she never does. Instead, she quietly walked into the house and returned with her laptop. She rested the silver computer directly onto the baking hot, red metal hood of the flatbed truck. Using the sleeve of her shirt, she wiped a layer of fine, diesel-scented dust off the screen. Her fingers flew over the keyboard as she frantically searched for a lifeline. She was looking for bulk agricultural soil neutralizers, fast-acting lime, biochar, liquid calcium. Anything that could instantly sweeten the dead earth and save our investment. From the kitchen window, little Henry watched the adults, clutching his wooden toy truck to his chest. He didn't understand the chemistry of the soil, but a child always senses when the safety of their world is threatening to crack. Tu Na ran the math over and over, hoping for a different result. But the numbers on the screen were as unforgiving as the earth below. The cost of buying enough organic neutralizer to fix 2 acres of ruined soil overnight was astronomical. It would completely bankrupt our small operating budget. It was money we simply did not have to give. Alex stepped up beside her, looking at the spreadsheet glowing in the harsh sunlight. He saw Tu Na close her eyes, let out a long, shaky breath, and softly shake her head. The silent communication between husband and wife spoke volumes. They were entirely out of options. Suddenly, the driver let out a short, frustrated shout. He stepped up onto the trailer, his heavy boots crunching loudly against the metal bed, and gripped the first heavy canvas cargo strap. He needed to empty his truck and get to his next job. Every single hour, those delicate root balls stayed exposed on the hot metal bed. The tiny, fragile feeder roots were dying. The choice was being forced upon us, ready or not. The harsh glare of the midday sun reflected off the silver casing of the laptop. Tu Na stared at the final number on the screen for a long, quiet moment. The dust from the ruined field had already settled in the creases of her knuckles. Slowly, deliberately, she closed the laptop. The sharp click of the screen shutting sounded like the final nail in the coffin of our original business plan. There would be no magical chemical fix. Buying the mountain of neutralizer required to save this flat, dead earth would drain the last reserve we had set aside for Henry's future schooling. It was a line we simply could not cross. A heavy, suffocating silence fell between Alex and Tu Na, broken only by the low rumble of the idling diesel truck. They were standing at the edge of a massive, empty expanse of land that they had spent weeks clearing, realizing it was nothing more than a toxic trap. It is a bitter, quiet truth in farming. The spreadsheets and business plans always look perfect inside the house, but nature alone dictates the reality of the soil. The easiest land to clear with a machine had turned out to be the most hostile environment on the entire property. Slowly, Alex turned his head away from the barren flatland. His gaze drifted past the wooden house, past the bamboo gate, and settled on the looming shadow that rose sharply behind our property. The Dragon's Back. It was a jagged, punishingly steep hillside. It was wildly overgrown with native ferns, completely inaccessible to any tractor, and littered with loose shale that made walking treacherous. But beneath that dense, untouched overgrowth lay centuries of decomposed leaves and natural compost. The soil up there was dark, loose, and incredibly rich. It was the complete opposite of the acidic yellow dust at their feet. This was the quiet realization, the hidden cost of our farm's expansion. The land that was easiest to work was dead. The land that could save the 2,000 dying pomelo saplings was a fortress of rock and gravity. There was no road up the Dragon's Back. There was no way to bring a machine. If the trees were going to survive, they would have to be carried up that mountain. Every single one of them, by hand. The sudden, sharp, metallic clack of a heavy iron ratchet releasing snapped us back to reality. The truck driver, his shirt soaked in sweat, had finally lost his patience. He aggressively threw the heavy canvas cargo strap over the top of the vibrant green saplings. He was preparing to offload the entire shipment directly onto the toxic yellow dirt. "Where do you want them?" the driver shouted over the engine, already reaching for the second strap. He didn't care about the pH levels of the soil. He only cared about his schedule. Alex took a slow, deep breath. The heat radiating from the dead earth beneath his boots felt like an oven. He looked at the 2,000 fragile root balls, their delicate green leaves beginning to curl slightly at the edges from the stress of the open air. Then he looked up at the towering, intimidating incline of the Dragon's Back. Walking up that hill empty-handed took 20 minutes of hard climbing. Carrying water, fertilizer, and heavy, wet saplings up that grade for weeks on end would be pure physical agony. But as Alex looked back at Tu Na, holding her dusty laptop against her chest, the choice was already made. When money cannot shield a family from ruin, raw human endurance is the only currency left to spend. Alex stepped forward, raising his hand to stop the driver. He walked directly into the path of the unloading zone, standing firmly between the precious green saplings and the dead earth. Without saying a word, Alex reached up and unbuttoned his heavy canvas work jacket. He stripped it off, folding it once, and tossed it onto the dusty metal bed of the truck. He turned and walked to the old wooden tool shed, leaning against the fence. When he emerged, his white knuckles were wrapped tightly around the rusted iron handle of our heaviest digging shovel. He walked back to the truck, his jaw set in a hard, immovable line. He pointed the iron blade of the shovel directly toward the steep, overgrown peak of the mountain. We weren't planting in the flat field today. We were going up. Hours bled into one another, and the mountain did not yield easily. Each trip up the jagged incline of the dragon's back, carrying heavy wet root balls against our chests, felt like dragging boulders. Our muscles screamed with every step as the late afternoon sun began to dip behind the tree line, casting long bruised shadows across the quiet valley. The sheer physical exhaustion made every movement dangerous. Halfway up the steepest section of the trail, Tuna's boot slipped on a patch of loose shale. She went down hard, the sharp, jagged rocks cutting deeply into her bare knee. Blood immediately mixed with the dark soil on her skin. Alex dropped his shovel and rushed toward her, his heart in his throat. But as he reached her side, he stopped. Tuna wasn't checking her bleeding leg. Instead, she had instinctively curled her entire body around the delicate pomelo sapling, shielding its fragile branches and roots from the crushing fall. She looked up at Alex, wiped the stinging sweat and dirt from her eyes, and smiled a tired, determined smile. She refused to let a single tree die today. We kept going. As true darkness finally fell over the farm, the only illumination came from the harsh, bright shafts of the truck's high beams, slicing through the blackness of the mountain. This is the hidden, unglamorous truth behind building a peaceful rural life. True love and partnership aren't just found over morning coffee. They are forged in the dirt, the sweat, and the shared pain of refusing to let your family's dream wither. We planted the final tree in the absolute stillness of the night. Alex and Tuna collapsed into the cool dirt at the crest of the hill, their lungs burning, completely spent. Tuna reached out with her bare, bruised, earth-stained hands and gently packed the dark, incredibly rich mountain soil around the base of the tiny, final pomelo sapling. The delicate green leaves seemed to settle into the moonlight, finally safe. Looking down from that high ridge, past the toxic yellow dust of the failed lower field, we could see the warm, familiar yellow glow of the lamps turning on inside our simple wooden house. Down there, the kitchen fire was crackling, and little Henry was waiting for us, safely wrapped in the ordinary routine of the evening. We had lost the easy path today, but looking at the neat rows of green life clinging to the steep mountain, we realized we had gained something much stronger. The transformation was complete. We had saved our farm's future, not with a massive budget or chemicals, but with the quiet, unbroken strength of our family. It is a strange and beautiful truth of nature. Sometimes the hardest, most punishing ground you own turns out to be the safest possible home for your future. Tomorrow, our bodies will ache, and the grueling daily task of carrying water up this mountain will begin. But tonight there is peace, because the sweetest fruit always grows from the bitterest soil. If you have ever had to take the harder physical path to protect your family's future, please share your experience with us in the comments below. We read every single message, so leave a comment to let Tuna know her hard work on the mountain today was truly worth it.